Michael Kenny, my cousin Mike. My cousin Mike, he used to always, or not always, but whenever he used to come down, all the kids loved him, and he had this race car that he took to my house once, and you heard him coming up the street. It was a road runner, and everybody jumped in the car. Many people that could fit jumped in his car, and he goes out on the street doing donuts and everything. And it was really, and then he came back, and in this dimension, he's about, I'd say around 25 years old, and in the dimension that I was born in, he's probably around maybe 48 or 50 right now. And that might go along with you understanding the fact that I'm on a nonlinear timeline. And that's one of the reasons why I said that, so you can connect those dots and understand kind of how things are going. My Aunt Hilda. And my Aunt Hilda, she was still hanging out with my Aunt Nancy, who was merged with my girlfriend. And it was wonderful seeing my Aunt Hilda. And Uncle Walter, her husband. I knew one Uncle Walter in that last dimension and one in this dimension. Mark Bizzello, I met one Mark in this dimension, and he grew up, and he's got a handshake like a vice. It's just, it was incredible seeing him. And then his father, Joe Bizzello. Joe Bizzello was hanging out with a couple of linemen that I knew. When I went through the apprenticeship, some of the linemen I trained under were two brothers called the Bates brothers, and I met my Uncle Joe, and he was hanging out with the Bates brothers. And when I went up to talk to my Uncle Joe, it was really nice to see him. And then I said, did you come down from a higher dimension? And then he looked at me and he goes, of course. So you can make out of that what you like, but he's around. Richard Bizzello. Richard Bizzello. I really miss Rich. I knew one Rich in the dimension that I was born in, and then I know two of them here, and it's really spectacular. I'm really glad, glad he's here. And these people, I mean, they all became either angels, sorcerers, or something, but definitely they all have superpowers. They all have magical powers, and they're all really intelligent. And I'm still trying to make sense out of, why is everybody coming and they're not saying anything and not communicating, but I would guess, because they're angels and they have to go by God's will, and they can't really tell me what to do with this information, because it's up to me to pass my own test of life, I guess. But I'm open to learning more myself, because I'm right on the verge of I'm not sure, I'm just bringing through information. And then Renee Bizzello. Renee came over the top. Every time I see Renee, I just have this feeling of love that's just incredible. I know one Renee from the last dimension that I was in, and that's my cousin. And in this dimension, Renee, two of Renee's became sorceresses. Two of them became angels, and then there's another one, and she's a magical healer and a Melchizedek priestess. And she knows how to do all sorts of magical stuff. And she hangs around with all sorts of saints and angels. And I mean, I have a lot more to say, but I mean, other than thank you, I don't know what to say about this stuff. Now, my Uncle Jim, I know one Uncle Jim from the last dimension that I was in. Okay. vocabulary right there. I know one Uncle Jim from the last dimension I came from, and I met my Uncle Jim twice here. And here I met him, and he's about, in the last dimension I came from, he's probably around 55 or 60 now. And in this dimension I met him and he was about 30. And then I met another version of him, and he had merged with one of my best friend's wives, who he's never met in the last dimension that I came from, but here they merged together and became a sorceress. And then Ken to John, which is Renee's husband in the last dimension that I came from. I met 3 of them here, and Ken became a sorcerer, a really extreme, badass sorcerer, and then also an angel. And then he also merged, when I was in high school, one of the cleaning services I worked at was the AAA cleaning service, and that was a man by the name of George Arena, and he was the owner of the cleaning service that I worked for. Well, Ken to John and my boss from the cleaning service, they merged together, and they're here in this dimension. But they had never met each other in the last dimension that I was in. But they're both in my heart, and they're a reflection of my consciousness, and they merge together. So in higher dimensions, it's merging madness. And then Mark Finizio. Mark Finizio is a friend from the last dimension that I was in, and I met 2 different versions of Mark here, and he's also younger here. And then another version of Mark Finizio merged, I believe, with James Hart from the Bio-Cybernaut Institute. But as far as I know, they never knew each other in the last dimension. But in this dimension, or actually, that wasn't this dimension. It was a dimension that I projected my consciousness to. My psychologist, Richard Lockheed, I knew one of him in the last dimension that I was in, and here I met 5 of them. And he is a, I mean, you talk about a spectacular psychologist. I mean, to switch dimensions, and then I meet 5 of them in this dimension. And there's a lot more I could say about that, and I will as things go on. And the time is right, or I get some sign to bring more information out in regards to specifics. But this is a lot of information here. Galileo. I met Galileo in this dimension. I never met him in the last dimension because, obviously he was just in the books and people believe he had died. But in this dimension, I met him in the physical. Jesus Christ. I met Jesus Christ once in the dimension that I came from in the physical. And in this dimension, I met 4 different versions of Jesus Christ. And then I've met one version of Jesus Christ or a couple of versions of Jesus Christ several times. But 4 different versions of Jesus Christ. And there was only one version where he spelled his name J-E-S-U-S. But the other versions, or these other doppelgangers, they're all different names. And Jesus Christ is such a spectacular being. I mean, more spectacular than I could ever possibly imagined, and nothing like I was taught he's like. But when you meet him, it's just really spectacular. It's going to be part of this creation to help everybody meet him. Melinda Miller was a girl in high school that I went out with, and then I met 2 Melindas in this particular dimension. And it was so spectacular to see Melinda again. And then she merged also. Jody Balsis was a girlfriend of mine in the other dimension. And then I saw her in this dimension 3 times, 3 different versions, and she became a sorceress, and then a gypsy, and then an angel. Jessica Supernaut. Jessica Supernaut was a girl I dated in the last dimension, and I saw her again in this dimension. And what a spectacular thing it was to see her. I saw her at the School of Remembering. Beth Ann Talty, and that was when I was 4 years old. It was the first girl I ever kissed, and I kissed her sitting in an apple tree. And I saw her again in this dimension. She came. Carol Jones was a correction officer I worked with, and when I was working as a correction officer, and she is here in this dimension. Marianne Castorello. I met Marianne. She is the owner of Psycho-Spiritual Health Care Services in the dimension that I came from. And I met her at a singles dance, and I had no idea what I was in for when I met her. But she was a little bit older than me, like maybe 10 or 15 years older than me. But she had this white hair that came down, just flowing bright. I mean, white crystal, as white as you can get, and just an absolutely spectacular woman. And I didn't think that I ever stood a chance of her even wanting to talk to me. But then I asked her to dance, and she did, and then we started dating, and it was just a really spectacular thing. When we were dating, she used to talk about stuff like galaxies and extraterrestrials and stuff like that, and at the time I didn't believe in extraterrestrials at all. And I was just, I was of an extremely low consciousness at that time. But Marianne came back, and I've probably, I have down here eight of her that I saw, but it's more than 8. It's like probably a dozen. And she's merged with everybody. She's merged with my other girlfriends. She's merged with my families. She merged with everybody. And Marianne has very, very powerful friends in the universe. So if you have the opportunity, or you are fortunate enough to be anywhere near Marianne Castorella, I would highly recommend seeking her services if you need any sort of help in that area. She is so for real, it's not even funny, magical, and she is connected in the universe like you wouldn't believe. It's just, and I don't want to say too much, but I don't want to say too much anymore about that, but as time goes on and I see how people are going to react to this, I come out with and really, really enlighten the human race with some really wonderful things there with Marianne. And then another girl I dated was Rebecca Wells in Alaska, and then I met Rebecca 8 times, 8 different versions of Rebecca. And then Sharon Ainsworth, that was another girl I dated. I met 3 of her. Sandy Green, she was a friend, and I dated her too a couple of times. I met 4 of Sandy Greens. Lucy Orculo, that was another girl I dated. I met her on a cruise ship, and I met, I have down here 5, but it's been probably a little more than that. But Lucy actually merged with another girl I dated, Charlene, who I've met, and they merged together and became an oracle, one of the most magical oracles you could possibly imagine. And she leads an entire team of oracles. So, if the human race decides that they want world peace, there's like